I'm Eric Rosales. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, airstrikes in Syria. The Biden administration responds following the death of a U.S. contractor worth the White House. Abortion push. Democrats continue to try and pass a bill that would allow U.S. tax dollars to go toward abortion. The church in Europe. Hear from the new leader of a group of bishops doing important work on the continent. And long-distance dedication. The head of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles encourages the faithful to join him for a 6-mile walk tomorrow. We'll explain these stories and much more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you so much for being with us on this feast of St. Catherine of Sweden. I'm Eric Rosales in for Tracy Sabol. Our top story tonight. President Joe Biden addresses the Canadian Parliament after meeting with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. But it's the Middle East that's caught the administration's attention. This after a strike by a suspected Iranian-made drone killed a U.S. contractor and wounded 5 American troops and another contractor in northeast Syria. White House correspondent Owen Jensen joins us now with the very latest. Owen.
Eric, good evening to you. American forces retaliated soon after with precision airstrikes in Syria, F-15 fighter jets targeting facilities used by groups affiliated with Iran's Revolutionary Guard. 11 Iranian-backed fighters reportedly killed. In Syria, ambulances rushing to the scene, U.S. forces under attack, and then returning fire. President Joe Biden okayed the retaliatory attack. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin warns, quote, "No group will strike our troops with impunity." And National Security Council spokesman John Kirby calls it a dangerous environment.
And we've got militant groups that are supported by Iran that are the ones conducting these attacks against our troops and our facilities. We're going to continue to do whatever we can to defend themselves. And if we have to retaliate like we did yesterday, we'll do that.
And the battle against ISIS continues.
We're there to defeat ISIS, to ensure the enduring defeat of ISIS. They are still a threat in Syria. They are still a threat in Iraq. Nowhere near what they were back in 2014, of course. But they're still there. They're still plotting. They're still planning.
President Biden, now in Ottawa, was on his way to Canada when he authorized the strikes. Today, meeting with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. At issue, Ukraine, China, migration, military spending, and Haiti.
We have no greater friend and ally than the United States, and it's always a real pleasure to be able to welcome you.
We're lucky. We have Canada to our north, share these values. All the values are the same. We disagree in degree on things occasionally, but there's no fundamental difference in the democratic values we share.
Later, President Biden addressed the Canadian Parliament.
And today I say to you and to all the people of Canada that you will always be able to count on the United States of America. I guarantee it.
Now, back to that attack on American forces. The U.S. says Iran has launched some 78 attacks on U.S. positions in Syria going back to January of 2021. Currently, there are 900 U.S. soldiers serving in northeast Syria. Meanwhile, after their trip to Canada, President Biden and the First Lady will head to Wilmington, Delaware, where they'll spend the weekend at their home. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you, Owen. Well, back on Capitol Hill, Democrats are doubling down on abortion. They want to use U.S. taxpayer dollars to pay for abortions in other countries. That practice, under the Helms Amendment, has been banned for more than 50 years. New Jersey Senator Cory Booker argues that abortion is health care.
We are seeing this Helms Amendment ultimately lead to death, ultimately lead to unsafe abortions, ultimately lead to the loss of human life.
Senator Cory Booker is one of the chief sponsors of the Abortion is Healthcare Everywhere Act. Democrats say that they want to expand abortion access in developing countries.
Eric Rosales with EWTN News Nightly, the Global Catholic Network. Senator Lindsey Graham has come up with a 15-week abortion ban as a proposal. Is that something, any sort of time compromise that you'd be willing to accept?
No. This is a slippery slope. This is what we are hearing. Oh, well, maybe we'll just do it this way. And yet we have 3-week laws that are being passed around. So if they want to sit down and restore Roe v. Wade and make sure that we're providing abortions to all who are would be eligible under that rule, that is the thing that we would support.
What would you want to tell the critics that say that the unborn child has rights as well?
I would say that the people who have rights are the ones whose body are being affected. So again, a private medical decision. And if people are talking about being pro-life, then that life should happen too after the child is born.
West Virginia Congressman Alex Mooney tells EWTN News Nightly it's just more extremism.
Have our taxpayer dollars pay for overseas abortions. These type of radical approaches do not represent most of Americans. Most Americans don't believe their tax dollars should go to pay for other people's abortions.
The bill currently has 142 Democratic co-sponsors in the House, along with the backing of both Planned Parenthood and other pro-abortion groups. It is unlikely to pass the Republican-controlled House. Well, the U.S. House did pass the Parents' Bill of Rights today. Supporters say it gives parents a greater say in their kids' public school curriculum, an issue they say should not be bipartisan.
That the Democrats thought it was too extreme. That the Democrats believe that parents shouldn't have a say in their kids' education and to actually know what the reading material is.
The measure not only requires schools to publish students' curriculum, but it also mandates that parents be allowed to meet with their kids' teachers and force school officials to notify parents when violence occurs on school grounds. The bill now heads to the Senate, where Democrat Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has already said it's dead on arrival. The CEO of TickTock has had his day on Capitol Hill. He was grilled for nearly 6 hours on China, drugs, and teen mental health. The testy congressional hearing took place yesterday. The social media platform CEO argued the app should not be banned simply because it has a connection to China. TikTok currently has about 150 million American users. It has been dogged by claims that it threatens national security, user privacy, and youth safety. Joining us now tonight is Jake Denton, Research Associate at the Tech Policy Center at the Heritage Foundation. Jake, great to have you with us again. And you know a lot about this, and America sees this as just another platform, just another app on the kids' devices. But give us your thoughts. Is it dangerous?
Yeah, the TikTok CEO comes out and says that, they're not a threat just because they're connected to the Chinese Communist Party. But at the end of the day, any company that is operating inside of China can be leveraged as a weapon by the Chinese government. Due to the 2017 national intelligence law that was passed in China, if asked, any company is forced to comply with a request of the Chinese government to assist in an intelligence operation. And so given the scale at which TikTok operates, nearly half of all Americans have the application. It's an immensely powerful weapon that could be potentially at the disposal of the CCP. So it's a huge threat.
Yeah, definitely gives them an eyes and ears inside America at any time. Let's get to yesterday's hearing on Capitol Hill. As we mentioned, the TikTok CEO was questioned for over 5 hours. Let's take a listen to some of his testimony about TikTok in China and the access to U.S. data.
Congressman, I would appreciate this. This is a complex topic. Today, all data is stored by default.
That's not that complex. Yes or no, do they have access to user data?
After Project Texas is done, the answer is no.
Yeah, the answer is no until the Communist Party needs it, correct?
Absolutely. Project Texas doesn't do a whole lot of anything, frankly. They move the storage location, but at the end of the day, does nothing to ensure 100% that data won't be accessible by the Chinese. And so, all the CEOs do this. It's particularly ridiculous when, a Chinese company comes and does this, but they just mislead our lawmakers because they lack the technical sophistication to go toe-to-toe with them. But that congressman there was absolutely 100% correct. There is still a data access issue. It doesn't get solved until it's completely banned from the U.S. marketplace.
Yeah, Heritage Foundation, you hosted your own event yesterday. A lot of moms out there, including the group Moms Against TikTok. They're in favor of the ban of the platform. And tell us more about what took place over there.
Yeah, so we saw the TickTock CEO coming to Washington as a unique opportunity to bring some people to Washington ourselves. And so we brought a collection of moms from organizations like Moms for Liberty, some notable folks like Chaya Raic of Libs of TikTok, as well as Congresswoman Mary Miller, Congressman Troy Nehls. And we really laid out how this affects American families, what it does to our children. And we gave a path forward, a clear vision for what this could look like. And that's a complete and total ban from the U.S. marketplace. We laid out the harms that, suicide rates are going higher and higher amongst our children. Eating disorders are on the rise. And, a serious country intervenes on behalf of these families and takes the necessary action, which is a total ban. And it gained a lot of support. Everyone who came to that event was in support. People walking by came over, said, thank you for doing this. The people are ready for this.
Well, I tell you what, Jake, it's always great to get your insight. Jake Denton with Heritage Foundation, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, we still have a lot more to come on EWTN News Nightly, including Painting the Picture. Learn more about the pro-life movement in Mexico. And a group representing the church in Europe elects a new leader. We'll be right back. Welcome back. A pro-life group in Mexico is pushing for a ban on surrogacy. Members of the group Steps for Life call the practice whereby a woman agrees to carry the baby on behalf of another woman or a couple an exploitation of female fertility. The church condemns the act, and last year Pope Francis warned the dignity of men and women is threatened by the inhuman and increasingly widespread practice of rent-a-womb, in which women, almost always poor, are exploited and children are treated as merchandise. Joining us now tonight with more on the fight against surrogacy in Mexico is Ana Cecilia Limon with the Steps for Life Michoacan. Ana, welcome. Thanks for being with us. We're talking about a $6 billion industry here. Is this practice growing in Mexico?
Hi, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, actually it is. Well, it's been kind of legal in 2 states only in the whole country, and in those states it's growing. It started growing in 2012 when in India they started putting some restrictions, and so all the especially for foreigners, so all the foreigners that used to go to India had to start looking for another place, so they started coming to Mexico, especially in Tabasco. And then in 2014, Thailand did the same thing. So they started coming also a bigger number of foreigners looking for the same thing.
And as we mentioned, Pope Francis said that most of the women targeted by this industry are of the poor. And is this to be the case in the country of Mexico as well?
Yeah, it is. One of the poorest states in Mexico, it's Tabasco, and it's the one that has this kind of practice since 1997, and so almost the whole state, it's very poor, and the women actually look for money like the easiest way, right? So it started becoming a bigger business. So in 2018. Yeah, in 2018, it was like $6 billion business.
Wow.
But they estimate that for 2025, it would be like $27 billion business. So it is growing, but sadly, the women only get like $500 or something like that. So
wow.
They still poor because of it. Yeah.
If you can, talk to me about your efforts to fight surrogacy. I understand that your group has painted murals throughout the country. Tell us more about the message that you hope to share through these paintings.
Yeah, so we want people to know that this is something that actually happens in Mexico, because a lot of people doesn't know that. And also that it makes people look at women like they only have to provide some kind of service. And the baby is like some kind of merchandise, like an object they can buy. And it actually, it's a practice that denigrates and enslaves women because, they don't get actually a lot of money. So they have to do it several times. So it enslaves them, and so we're trying to legislate against it, and that the murals, it's a way to show people the reality about this problem.
Well, Ana Cecilia Limon, thank you so much for being with us. Vaya con Dios, and thank you again tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, a group of Catholic bishops based in Europe has elected a new leader. It was part of the group's 2023 assembly held this week in Rome. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andres Thonhauser has more.
The Commission of the Bishops' Conferences of the European Union has a new president. Bishop Mariano Crociata was elected during the plenary assembly held this week in Rome. A 70-year-old Italian, Bishop Crociata is replacing Cardinal Jean-Claude Hollerich from Luxembourg, whose 5-year term has ended. From 2008 to 2013, Bishop Crociata served as a Secretary General of the Italian Bishops' Conference. Recently, he has been serving as Vice President of the European Bishops. Founded in 1980, the Commission of the Bishops' Conferences of the European Union, or short COMECE, represents the Catholic Church in many European institutions. Its new leader says he was a little overwhelmed after learning of his new role.
È il senso di una grande responsabilità che intimorisce.
Bishop Crociata says he became convinced that thanks to his experience as vice president and also through the great support of COMECE, he will face the new role with confidence. Unity in Europe and peace are the two urgent issues, the new president said, themes addressed extensively in these days of election. At the end of the assembly, COMECE's Secretary General, Father Manuel Barrios Prieto, spoke about the challenges facing European bishops with regard to the war in Ukraine and the various emergencies the continent is currently experiencing.
We have to always keep in mind that the European project was born after the terrible experience of 2 world wars. So this war goes against the original project of the European Union. So we have to do all that is possible to stop and this war. And then the consequences of this war. So we have the refugee crisis in Europe, which is very important, the energetic crisis, and a lot of issues that are present.
During the General Assembly this week in Rome, European bishops met with Pope Francis. The Holy Father called for a cohesive commitment to peaceful coexistence, emphasizing that war cannot be considered a solution to conflicts.
Tanto che si può parlare ormai di una terza guerra mondiale.
In Europe, the Holy Father said, there can be no unity if the characteristics of peoples and cultures are not respected and valued. COMECE is by nature a bridge between the churches in Europe and institutions of the Union, the Pope stressed. An organization that builds relationships and works for peace, an aspect that currently remains the most important priority.
And he talked about dreams, and this is a message that he continues repeating to COMECE. He has a dream for Europe. Or God has a dream for Europe that he communicates to us, he expresses to us. And it's a dream to work together for a better future, also not only for Europe but for humanity, in which the Church can contribute a lot.
In Rome, Andreas Thonhauser and Matteo Ciaffi, EWTN News Nightly.
Up next on EWTN News Nightly, a new home, how 20 Afghan girls survived a terror attack by ISIS. And steps in the right direction. The Archdiocese of Los Angeles announces a unique plan as part of its Eucharistic revival. We'll be right back. ISIS terrorists ambushed their school in a suicide bombing, but tonight the victims of the attack, a group of 20 teenage Afghan girls, rest safely in Spain. The Spanish government, working with Catholic aid group Vulnerable People Project and the Jewish Humanitarian, responded, granting visas to 20 of the 180 girls affected. The remainder will go to Canada. Joining us now is Jason Jones, founder and president of the Vulnerable People Project. Jason, always good to talk with you. And let's start off with these poor girls. And you know, they were just preparing for their entrance exams last fall at their school, and when it was attacked, killing dozens of their colleagues. What more can you tell us about this event?
Yeah, it was the tragedy of the attack was it was at the Kaj Hazara Educational Center. So Afghan students, most of them young women from across Afghanistan, were there to take exams, entrance exams. And so when the ISIS attack happened, Hazara children from all over Afghanistan were wounded, and the Hazara are a minority in Afghanistan that are facing genocide at the hands of ISIS. And with our work at the Vulnerable People Project, we've worked with vulnerable communities around the world, and I've never met a community that is more passionately committed to education, that is more passionately committed to the education of young girls and women than the Hazara community. So it's quite devastating.
And your group has just done some amazing work. I mean, these girls were in need of medical care that could not be provided in Afghanistan. What was their state, both physically and mentally, and after this attack?
Well, as you can imagine, it's catastrophic. There were about 50, I think there were 56 young students that died, 46 of them young girls, 110 were injured. The 20 that received visas and free hospital care thanks to a Catholic hospital, they need major surgeries. So the 20 most seriously wounded will be coming to Spain. When it really hit me is we took them to a shopping mall. We were there to greet them and to help and make sure that their process and their transition went smoothly. We took them to a shopping mall. I wanted to get them a tea kettle, something that's part of their culture, teacups and tea. We asked them what they wanted to eat. These are teenage girls. They'd never been in a shopping mall before, like a Western shopping mall, and they said pizza with a big smile. And the young girl sitting next to me was very shy and embarrassed, and she couldn't lift her arm because the whole left side of her arm was so badly damaged, and she was sort of ashamed and embarrassed to ask me to cut her pizza for her. Another young girl you can see in one of the photos, it's quite bulky. Well, she has a very large brace on because her back was so severely injured. But yet they were all very eager to talk about what their hopes were for the future. And thanks to some of our partners in Spain, all 20 of these girls will be receiving 5 years of education, including 1 year of intensive Spanish education and then the degree program of their choice.
Absolutely incredible there. I mean, their rescue and resettlement is an extraordinary blessing, but I'm sure it's a challenge as well for these girls. I mean, not only do they have to deal with tremendous trauma, but they left their families, their homeland behind. What are their new lives like? What can you report on that?
Well, it's a bit bewildering. I'm in Manchester, England, as I'm coming to you today. And as I took the train from London, I'm a 51-year-old man with my luggage. I speak English. I'm an American, and I'm kind of wandering around lost and confused in this train station in Manchester, England. So you have to imagine young girls from rural Afghanistan, Shia, Hazara minorities, and it's quite jarring. And so it's sorrowful. We're really grateful that they have the opportunity to receive this medical care. And we're really grateful that they have this wonderful opportunity to continue their education. But we have to remember these are young girls. These are teenage girls. They're in a new country. They've been separated from their parents, from their families. They have the jarring memory of having their flesh ripped apart by a bomb placed by ISIS-K, and knowing that so many of their friends died. And so this is the sorrowful world we live in. But Vulnerable People Project is very openly a Catholic apostolate. And we believe that the work of the Catholic in the world is to stand with the most vulnerable members of our human family, whether it's the child in the womb and young women in our communities, or young people facing the fentanyl crisis in our own communities.
Right.
But then as Catholics in a republic like ours that has influence around the world, we have a real opportunity to work towards we want to exemplify that the global community should serve the most vulnerable people in the world, not exploit them, not use them, not shunt them aside, and not ignore them. And so the work at the Vulnerable People Project is that we really seek to serve the most vulnerable people in the world. We say that in human rights work, there's always Palm Sunday, where there's an enthusiasm and an excitement about a social cause, but we want to be there on Good Friday. We want to be there at the cross, and it's a sorrowful work most of the time, but being able to get these young women the medical care they need, being able to see that they can further their education. For us, this is sort of like a resurrection moment. It's an exciting moment.
Sure.
that gives us hope. There are 180,000 former Afghan allies, SIVs, that have been abandoned to Afghanistan that are hiding and fearing for their life. There are 20 million Afghans facing acute hunger. Christians and other minorities, especially the Hazara, are facing the brunt of this. And so what we do at VPP, we've delivered over 1.5 million meals since December 24th, when we kicked off our Coal for Christmas campaign, where we give coal for heat, because even a bigger threat to life in Afghanistan right now than even ISIS is the weather and starvation.
Well, Jason Jones, I tell you what, your organization is an incredible organization that is touching the hearts of many through Jesus. And thank you so much for being with us. God bless you.
Well, EWTN's been with us every step of the way. And if people go to thegreatcampaign.org, they can stand with us as we try to serve the most vulnerable people in the world.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Well, finally tonight, the head of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles is set to lead a 6-mile Eucharistic procession through the city. Archbishop Jose Gomez says it's part of the Eucharistic revival push in the U.S. The day begins with Mass at the historic San Gabriel Mission, and its route goes all the way through downtown Los Angeles before returning back to the mission for benediction. For more information and to sign up for the free event, visit lacatholics.org. Want to thank you so much for watching tonight. Remember, you can always follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Eric Rosales. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Have a good night, and God bless.